I was just saying to you there, Stephen, I suppose we better get this show started, eh? Don't know why I'm repeating myself. I mean, it's the truth, isn't it? Uncle. Well, hello and welcome into this Monday's Entertainment News. I am Jonathan C. Walsh, your host for this evening. And joining me to the left is Stephen John McLaughlin, who's the co-host on the stream show live event this evening. Thank you for joining us if you're here, and if you're not here, well, I'm talking to nobody. We're going to be talking about the Beatles, Stephen, tonight. That's the Beatles and the anthology, more specifically. Rumours, potentially confirmation, I want to say, certainly about the book, that we're going to get an anthology re-release for the 25th anniversary later this year. Which is big news, Stephen. If you're a Beatles fan, if you're a music fan, it's big news. I'm sure we'll get into it in more depth as we go through the sort of conversing over this, but I still maintain this is the greatest documentary release, sort of music and video, collaborative documentary release ever gifted to the world. Just the archival interview and stuff with Lennon, getting the different experiences from 3-4 different perspectives. The sidemen, the likes of Neil Aspinall and Derek Taylor, always butcher his name, and guys like that. Yeah. Just getting to see how this band became a phenomenon. Dick. Yes, Dick. I used to call him Dick Taylor, yeah. That was the... I'm thinking about Dick Lester had done A Hard Day's Night. I'm combining him with Derek. Definitely not the same person. But it was just a fantastic... I mean, I've seen it about 3 times, Stephen, and I really am overdue watching it again. It's just a phenomenal documentary. And I'm buzzing about this news to get a tweet. First of all, for the book, I've never read the book. I'd like to read the book. Although I'm thinking it's just... What? I don't know.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Does it offer more information? Because I was thinking it would just be the sort of oral sort of interviews...
There's bits that fill in. It's one of the things that came out, I think it was 5 years after the documentary, John, and once you actually get into the book, you understand why it took so long, and I think that there's so much more information, and I think part of it is probably because the remaining 3 Beatles at that time were probably more comfortable off camera rather than on camera, and I think there's moments in it where George is talking about his relationship with Yoko and reminding the reader, you've got to remember this was 3-4 decades ago. There's been a lot of water under the bridge since that. Our relationship is a lot better than it was. Little things like that they wouldn't see in camera. Paul McCartney was, I watched an old interview with him and Conan O'Brien from, I think it was around about 97 or something like that. And Paul McCartney talks about the anthology documentary, the actual TV special. I think it was ABC it was on, and over here I think it was on ITV, I think. And he talks about the interpretations, like you said, and the instance he gave was the Elvis incident, meeting Elvis. I was going to say for the first time, they only met him once. So Ringo was adamant that Elvis never got off his chair the whole time. Paul remembers Elvis answering the door. So
John
little things
jamming
like that.
with him.
Yeah, it's like misremembering stuff, and it's a long time ago, and who knows what they were on back there? Probably on hash,
LSD,
amphetamines. So it was a great series, John, and I know we've done the review about maybe 4 years ago, and we briefly talk about the book coming out as well, and I actually do mention that in the review that the book is filler. It fills in the blanks, and there's so many instances, John. I think the one that I talked about was the sort of full story of them coming back from the discotheque, John, George, Patty and Cynthia on LSD, and Patty wants to go out and play football in a rugby park, and everything was elongating, and it was some story, John.
George I was just clutching the steering wheel like a 90-year-old fucking Eiffel. Yeah. Concentrating so hard to make sure he could stay on the road. That would give me the fear. I would like to try it.
Yeah, I mean, what, the book or LSD?
LSD, I'd like to give it a try, I'm not going to lie. Stephen, I genuinely do believe it's a sort of gateway to a whole... we're getting off piste here, But they're doing all sorts of clinical studies now with LSD, acid, and sort of hallucinogenic drugs in general, and they're finding that they're revolutionary for people with depression and mental health problems. They were demonised back in the Beatles' time, and even right up till probably the 2000s. They were seen as these terrible things, gateway drugs into heroin. And look, it can happen. You've seen it with John Lennon. If you've got an addictive personality, and I watched an interview with him recently on YouTube Shorts. I get hammered with Beatles content because I'm constantly listening to Beatles stuff. But he says he did everything harder and more. He was on the sort of speed and the amphetamines and the Hamburg days to stay up. He did more than the rest. He'd done more hash than the rest. He went on fucking acid. He did everything. It was just all in with John. And obviously in the later days, it was the rocket fuel Colombian coffee. So he was an all-in kind of guy. So for him, it's inevitable he was going to fall into that pitfall of dabbling with heroin and whatnot. Don't think he ever injected it. I think he smoked it, didn't he, or something? He did something with it. He was never like a full-on, like, hardcore heroin junkie. But there's been studies done, and it's revolutionising people's mental health. It's really aiding people with severe depression.
They don't avoid it in the book, to be fair. You know, they do talk about it, and they talk about it in the documentary as well, to be fair. Paul McCartney is very open about the whole conversation they had and the pressure from the other three Beatles about him being the last one to take it and stuff. And George, in part of that interview, says, yeah, I mean, for about a year and a half we were trying to get him to take it, and then I'm watching him on TV talking about taking it. It's very strange, you know. And that was a cracking interview from Paul McCartney. The way he handled it was fantastic.
He did this again in another interview many years after. I can't remember the context. It may have been about hash again.
Yep.
I'm smoking weed in the incident in Japan, I think.
Early 80s it was, John, yeah.
But he obviously got detained, and then they released him because he had obviously marijuana in his possession, or in his possession. But that interview was brilliant, Stephen, and it's just that sums Macker up. He's so well spoken, such a smart, sharp guy. He turned the whole thing on its head. Basically says to the reporters, I mean, everybody that knows the Beatles has seen it. I'll tell you, I'll be upfront and honest with you, and now it's on you to tell the nation you are going to take the consequences. I'm going to be honest with you. But if you exactly, if you want to influence or worry about influencing younger people and having them maybe take a drug because their hero takes it or whatnot, then that's on you. You're reporting it.
And don't show us,
Exactly. It was fucking clever. Even though he was the last one to try it. I don't blame him, Stephen, because Mackie was always the most switched on of the four. Let's be honest, he was. He was the more sensible. So, probably, I don't know.
Grounded.
Grounded and conservative one of the four. I mean, the guy's got a fucking knighthood. I know Ringo's now got a right to knighthood, but it took a long time for Richard to get it. Mackie was right on that gravy train as quickly as he could. So it doesn't surprise me. He was more, and I can understand it because it's serious shit you're dealing with. Like he says in it, was it the anthology he said? He didn't want to do it because he was worried it would take something away.
Yeah, he said that once you take it, you're never the same.
Exactly. That could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it's things like that in the anthology that just stand out. All the little nitty-gritty details, from really innocent small things like Ringo getting bailed on with George, I think it was, at the scene of an accident. Was it Ringo get bailed? I think Ringo had a crash and George drove away. Things like that. The other way around. George had a crash and Ringo drove away.
No, you're right. George drove away.
Drove away, yeah, and left Ringo.
He didn't know. He, at that point, he never knew that Ringo had smashed
the crash. Yeah, it was just things like that, and obviously George getting punched after Pete Best get kicked out, walking into a punch and having a black eye. All those little details that sort of. Was that in the anthology, or is that something I've read? The condom getting burnt on the wall in Hamburg, and George getting tossed out the country because of it, because they found out his ID. So all those little details, that's something you would never have known about prior to the anthology. The Beatles would have been this sort of clean-cut, suited and booted band, sort of heartthrobs for all the girls and whatnot. You would never have heard about this side of it unless it was also documented and gave to us in this unbelievable part.
Yeah. The thing we were talking about before we came on live was the reasoning for the book's release, first and foremost. As part of an anniversary, the 25th anniversary. The book came out in the year 2000, 5 years after the documentary and the album and single releases. But we had a sort of theory to that. Obviously, the book is what it is. It's going to be a re-release. It's just a new edition of the book. I don't think there's any change in it. I hope there's not. I hope Paul McCartney's not got his hands on this and changed everything.
It was me. I did it all.
One of the things I like about the book, it's the four of them telling their story. It's not a one-sided story from one individual from the band. It's the four of them all contributing. But I think that's the purpose of it. It's the 25th anniversary release of the book.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how they're going to package it up yet. I think it's later on in the year it comes out. I've still got the original one from 2000. It's up in my loft attic, if you call it in the US. But I'll have to give you it, John.
Yeah, I'd like to read that. Yeah, I've never read it.
It's well packaged, and it's a good quality book as well. It's a hardback.
It's the silver, Stephen, isn't it? There's something about that silver.
You know the one that accompanied the Peter Jackson documentary.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that as well, but I mean that's a great book as well when it's well presented and it's good quality. Well, this is the same sort of quality. The book, in terms of the dust cover, is kind of tapered a little bit now, but that's just with age. But the actual book itself is absolutely solid. I think it was. I can't remember how much it was at the time. It was very expensive though.
Well, they're saying this one's going to retail for £40.
Yeah.
For the paperback version, also the hardback will be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
But you don't mind paying that, Stephen, because it's a collector's item at the end of the day. It was like me with the Beatles re-release. What was it? What was the anniversary?
It was 2009, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2009, yeah. They released the box set with all the sort of 2009 remasters. And I remember buying that and just being blown away. And then I went down the rabbit hole, also I got the Lennon one. Macca was releasing Wings remasters at the time. I got banned in the run. It's just something about it. You can say it's a cash grab, it's cynical, they're just trying to monetise the brand again, but ultimately it's not, because it's for a new generation. And the thing with books is that when they are 25 years old, they become harder to get in mint form. And people like things in mint form if they can get them in mint form. So if someone like me, who was around at that time but didn't have the pleasure of reading the book, if I couldn't get access to it via yourself, then I would absolutely be fucking on board for buying something like this. Because it's history.
I think one of the reasons as well, John, they've brought the book out first is because it is what it is. There's no remastering it of anything. There's nothing that they have to do in terms of a lot of work. It's really just a reprint. Whereas we were questioning why didn't they do the documentary in Blu-ray or digital download or whatever. I think I did digital download, but in terms of a high definition version of the anthology, which would be 30 years this year. So it might be later on in the year we might get that as well. Who knows? It might all come out at the same time, but there is a reason for that, John. Or there is a probably a reason for that we think. Maybe the reason is the Now and Then release. Being introduced onto the third album, the anthology album, where it should have been in the first place. And also the remastering of both, is it remastering? It's not remastering, is it? Of Real Love and Free as a Bird.
They're getting the AI treatment. What is the name of that software that Peter Jackson uses?
The MAL treatment.
The MAL treatment, it's getting that. They're cleaning up Lennon's vocals, isolating them. And then, but Steve, the whole conversation, we had this before, but I really do want to hit home again. I hope when they are doing these remasters, they don't remove Macca's backing vocals that were used to fatten it up, because that's now part of the sort of identity of the song. You can clean up Lennon's vocals, give them a sort of richer tone akin to what you would have got in a studio singing, if it wasn't some crappy at home recording where Jeff Lynne's having to work fucking magic to this day. I don't know how he did it. But if you take away Macca's backing vocals, you're losing something. So I hope when they go back and do it, Macca will be overseeing it anyway. He'll make sure it's done right. One thing I'll say about him, rewriting history and whatnot, which he's guilty of doing in recent times, I think when you put that guy in a studio, along with Giles Martin, who knows his fucking shit, they'll make it right. They'll get it bang on. I want Jeff Lynne in there as well, because it's as much
John,
his song now as anything else.
Yeah. When we talked about Real Love and Free as a Bird on one of our shows, maybe about 6 weeks ago or something, someone did say in the comment section that on Twitter or X that Sean and Danny were overseeing the remastering of it, or remixing, I don't know what you call it. just to sort of tartan it up and making it, you know, a cleaner production.
Yeah.
So the fact that Paul and Ringo are going to be in there, but I think in terms of representatives for George and John, it's going to be Danny and Sean. So it's good to see that there's some motion, there's something happening, and I think it will all come probably at the end of the year, because the anthology came out. I think it was the start of '96. I might be wrong, because I know that Freeze a Bird came out in November '95, and then the TV series, it might have been the end of '95. I'm misremembering, John. It was a long time ago, but
yeah, November 1995.
Yeah, it would fit. I mean, it would fit if they got everything, you know, in place for a late 2025 release for the 30th anniversary of the documentary and the 25th anniversary of the book, along with the albums as well, all cleaned up.
Yeah.
And obviously the singles. Then it's another big year for the Beatles.
Is there any, do you think, other outtakes that are maybe lying around that they've not actually included? I feel I've heard every single outtake at this point. I would imagine if you want to do a re-release, you'd want to add something new. Obviously, you're getting new with the actual new Mal treated Freeze a Bird and also Real Love. But I would want to see more getting it included if you possibly could. Not any more sort of fucking video footage and interviews, because I don't want to see whitewashing of history now George is out the picture. But in terms of outtakes and little audio treasure troves that you get with the likes of the anthology, and there's so many, Stephen. I mean, some of my favourite shit is those fucking takes on the anthology stuff, like Mailman Bring Me No More Blues, Ain't She Sweet.
The different versions are a lot better. That, in my opinion, I think It's Only Love from Anthology 2 is a better version, because it's more Dylan-esque.
Yes, it is.
Than the Help version. John, you talked about stuff that cropped up. Hey Bulldog video, the one that we all know and love, which has been around YouTube for the best part of 15-20 years now, was only found in the early 2000s, so this was after the anthology. So I would mind that inserted into the documentary, things like that, because that is, as you said, it's archival, you can't change it, and it's part of their history. So there is things that have came about, obviously, since the anthology's release in terms of archives and stuff cropping up. I saw in the news just last week some guy had one of the original tapes. I can't remember when it was from, but Pete Best was playing on it, and he was quite happy. He was quite happy to give it up to Paul McCartney, no cost. I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?"
That's mad.
You've been making a few bob off that,
Stephen. I mean, that's another example. Pete Best, I know he's not a sort of official Beatle, because when they actually kicked off, he was out the picture. But that's another way where you could maybe add another sort of layer to it. I mean, they're not going to do it. I'm not going to throw my bone. But you could, if you're introducing fucking Pete Best sort of recordings, you could bring in. There's so much scope. I know them are not going to get this. If they do a re-release of the actual anthology itself, it'll just be better resolution, better mixed versions of the songs, and look, that's fucking good enough. When you put Giles Martin in the room, I don't want to shit on George Martin's contribution. The guy's a legendary producer and musician in his own right on the piano and whatnot. But Giles has got access to modern technology that George could only have dreamed of having even 30 years ago. And with that, you're going to get better fidelity, better scope for mixing things. Giles has been out and says before, with the remasters of albums going back bit by bit, he's producing and presenting the music as it would be if you were in Studio 2 in Abbey Road, where the positioning George is here, John's there, Mac is here, Ringo's over there. So it feels like it's an authentic experience. And I now can't get back and listen to those 2009 remasters, because they sound infinitely worse to me. The bass is too prominent. I mind when I first started listening, I'm like, where's the fucking bass? It felt muffled, it felt not as prominent to me.
Complaints, wasn't it? I think actually, John,
but it's more balanced.
If my memory serves correct, that you got the stereo version, and I think not long after it, they released the mono version.
That was a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That was a whole other rabbit hole. I was not aware of different versions of songs. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and songs on Sgt. Pepper's were completely fucking different. Different lengths, different things going on in them. Crazy. There's a whole treasure trove of stuff out there with the Beatles. but you don't even know where to begin. You think you've reached the end and it just continues to go and go and go. And there's more stuff out there, I'm telling you. I'm convinced there's video footage out there somewhere of live shows of fucking the mid-60s sort of stuff. There's got to be stuff.
I want to see the full Indian stuff.
Yep.
I want to see, obviously, the stuff at Paul's studio in the mid-90s when they were doing Freezer Bird and Real Love, all that windmill studio stuff.
There was a
because it is out there, and I know that Peter Jackson got his hands on some of it for the Now and Then video, and he cleaned it up very well.
Yeah.
Because I think they were using sharp view cams. So, yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think there's more out there. And it was funny because I think around about the time that the Get Back documentary came out, we did the reaction for the trailer. I was quite saddened because I thought, is this the end? Is this, and how naive was I? Not knowing that there'd be another single coming out, and there's other things as well. Away from AI, we're not talking AI here, we're talking about archival stuff that is getting unearthed, that is getting discovered all the time, and what they can do with the MAL system can really clean these things up. Someone was actually talking about a Tootin' or Snoring 74 on one of the Facebook groups, saying they could separate all the instruments, and you can actually get John and Paul, but I think the actual sessions were terrible. I think it was drug fueled, in 1974. You can imagine who Lennon was on at that point.
That'd be incredible to get that. That is like iconic. What the stuff going on there that most people have not heard of. Obviously, Carnival of Light is.
Yeah.
The Maca sort of, what would you call that? It's not. I'm thinking of Art Nouveau for some reason. That's not what I'm looking for.
Collage.
Yeah, there's a name for it, isn't there? What do you call that again when you've got? Oh, I can't remember. It's like experimental music. There's a name for it. Also, Revolution 9 as an example. That's out there somewhere. Mac has alluded to it being a thing. It exists. We've not heard it before, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. There's stuff out there that's still to be tapped into. One of the greatest crimes was the early BBC stuff. Them overwriting those things because they didn't have an endless supply of tapes.
So after tape was very expensive.
Yeah, so they'd overwrite that. So there's whole fucking sessions with the Beatles when they were in their sort of more raucous, younger. Fucking unbelievable. Incredible. Yeah. I mean, that's lost.
That was just the BBC, wasn't it? Yeah.
And Lennon used to jokingly say, but I think it was an air of truth in it, they were a better band in the early days because they were so tight because they'd been together for a couple of years, just gigging like maniacs. They were better, probably, as a live band at that point in their history. The fucking sessions are gone. But there's stuff out there they can go in and back and remaster and give you. There's so much scope for these re-releases. I don't view these re-releases as being a cynical move. You're just revamping it for a new generation of people, and the Beatles are timeless as a band. They'll live forever. For me, they're still the greatest band on earth, and they've not been together for 50 fucking years. So,
I know Neil Aspinall was a big part to play in, obviously, the release and the way things were staggered for the best part of 40 years, John, and you've got to respect him for that. I he always came across as a good guy, and he was very protective of the Beatle brand and Apple and everything else that went with it, and he fought court case after court case with Steve Jobs on the whole Apple thing as well, went toe-to-toe with him. So you've got to respect him for that, and in terms of since Neil's passing, we've had the Silly stuff happening. We've had the Love album, which was part of that.
Yep.
We've had, obviously, the Now and Then stuff, and re-release of Yellow Submarine, and so on and so on. There's things out there that, and obviously Peter Jackson's Get Back, which I don't think would have been released under Neil Aspinall. I don't think he would have wanted that released just because he was protective of the image. And I think John Lennon mentioned that in one of his early interviews in the 70s, was that, people, he was having a go at Neil and Derek Taylor and all that, those sort of people that were sort of just in the outskirts of the fore.
Yeah.
But they were still part of the inner sort of family. And they just wanted to get Abbey Road out to sort of package everything up, bookend it as nice as they possibly could to keep the myth going, as he said. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think in terms of the Beatles' message was always about love, it was always about hope and peace. and that's just part of it, as far as I'm concerned, with the brand. So it's one of the very rare occasions I disagree with John Lennon.
Lennon was just a really bitter, angry man at that point. I just
and
take,
who really made it very big. That's all.
yeah, I don't take anything
means
he
more
says.
to people than him. Yeah, than he thinks or he thought at the time.
He was lashing out at everybody, Stephen. He was lashing out at Mick Jagger. He was lashing out at the Rolling Stones. He was lashing out at Paul McCartney. He was lashing out at just about every fucking religion on earth. Lashing out at George. Lashing out at Bob Dylan. Everybody was copping it from John at that point. He was just a really deeply unhappy guy at that point in his life.
Probably a breakdown, John. Probably a bit of a mental breakdown. I mean, I think he was coming off. I think he was going through the whole cold turkey thing at that point. So, I mean, it had probably a lot going on in his own head at the time.
Was it scream therapy?
I think maybe the fact that the way things ended, there's guilt there as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't take anything he says. I don't take anything he says personal, or even serious from that point. I think, but even by the end of the 70s, he'd matured again and went back and maybe softened. But he was very wishy-washy, John, I think, and things like that. He seemed, no harm to him, a very strong guy, but he did have a soft spot for fucking chancellors. Magic Alex, was it? Yeah, Greek man creating the studios that didn't work, and I think he had some fucking bullshit contraptions that he was creating for Lennon. He was suckered right in by it. He had what was that box he had with the lights? 4 lights or something. So Lennon was very taken for chancellors, and obviously your man, I'm blanking his name, Klein.
Yeah.
The three of them fell for that fucking clown shoe, and in history, Macca will be vindicated for the choice that he made with regards to that. So Lennon wasn't this perfect being that get everything bang on. So I don't take the attacks on Aspinall was a brilliant guy, man. We wouldn't have had this documentary if it wasn't for him. He put it together, and he obviously archived all of this stuff. He was there and lived and breathed it with the likes of Mal Evans and all the other prominent side figures. These people are really important to the story. They bust them about. They kept shit together financially. They were always around sorting stuff out. Lennon was a basket case with money. That's why I laugh when people go on about Yoko, like she's some chance. I look at my camera just shaking because of my dog. It's like the set of Star Trek back in the day. My dog's shaking.
It's like me back in the day. Yeah. If you watch your anthology review, you see the camera shaking.
That'd have been Harley under the table. Yeah. Just praying that he didn't pull the whole setup away like he did one fateful time with the cat up in the window. Yeah. The cat decided to come out. My dog ripped the entire room apart. Fucking thousands of pounds worth of stuff just lying. But it survived, and we survived, and the dog survived incredibly. I digress. Where was I? I've lost the plot.
We're talking about Aspinall and Mal Evans.
Yeah, really important people, really important parts of the story. So I don't take anything Lennon says in regards to them series. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have had this incredible documentary. And look, I was just searching it up there, and people agree. I mean, I literally looked in images that came up with something about the Beatles, the anthology is still the greatest, or something that I can't remember. I'm trying to, what's the word you use? I'm trying to think, not verbatim, because that's reading it. Paraphrasing is the word I'm looking for. Still one of the greatest sort of documentaries ever produced, and it really is, man. There's something about it. It just flows perfectly. It's just having these people sitting, these incredible fucking three guys, with obviously Lennon posthumously doing stuff. It just flows beautifully. I need to get back and watch it again, but now I'm going to take a step back and pray to sweet baby Jesus that we get the 30th anniversary re-released later in the year. I do want to read the book, but I want to see the actual anthology getting a new like a paint. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah, there's something about that documentary, John, that's got everything that you want from a documentary. And it's funny because when you're talking about Neil Aspinall putting all the footage together in the early 70s, I think it was a lot shorter. I think it was a condensed version, and he lent it to Neil Innes from Riddles fame, and that's how they were able to, replicate it on All You Need Is Cash. And I mean, it's one of those documentaries, John, that I remember when it was on ITV on a Sunday evening, and you got one episode per week, and I'm just looking forward to every episode. a lot of people thought it was quite a slow burn, but I mean, that's what it's got to be for us. I mean, there's so much information in that short period of time from 1962 to 1970. And you're not only that, you're getting back to their childhood and what influenced them and what they were into and stuff like that. So it goes right all the way back to, I think, Ringo being born. So you're literally starting from the day dot right through to the very end of the Beatles' career, and just in between, listening to the stories coming from the actual people was a rare thing, because up to that point you were getting those sort of crappy TV movies about the Beatles, actors playing them, or perhaps maybe some manager in Wales, that met them one night, and there's a whole documentary on that talking about his interpretations, and that incidental music as well. John used to really rub me up the wrong way. That fucking shit.
It's like the Beatles in the cavern, but it's not the Beatles in the cavern. It's the Beatles in the cavern, as Johnny was saying. The Beatles. Your host for this evening, the Beatles. I need to go back and watch that as well. It's been too long since I've seen that. It's been a good couple of years now, incredibly. I'd have to get back and watch that. There's so much incredible documented sort of footage, and it's been put together by the likes of Martin Scorsese and whatnot over the years. Brilliantly, Ron Howard done the other documentary, didn't he?
Beatles in 1964.
Yeah.
Was it called 8 Days a Week?
8 Days a Week. I thought that, but I didn't want to make a fool of myself by saying it. So there's just a whole, again, I keep using this word or this phrase, treasure trove, but it's true, of Beatles footage out there and content out there that you can get your teeth into. But this is the sort of Shangri-La, the toppermost of the poppermost when it comes to it. You see what I did there? A couple of references. Shangri-La was the Ruttles. Neil Innes, as Stephen alluded to. And also toppermost of the poppermost was what John used to say to the other guys when they were in the shit-stained clubs back in the day, hadn't get their big break yet. It was probably still Long John and the Silver Beatles. Where are we going, fellas? To the top, Johnny? To the toppermost, to the poppermost? Right. This is still the cream of the crop. And I don't know, Stephen, has it been remastered since it was released in the mid-90s, or is this just what we got in the mid-90s? Because I'm not sure, because obviously I get the box set.
Yeah.
Probably fucking 18 years ago now.
The VHS tapes when they first came out in the sort of late 90s, which cost a packet. I think it was £120 at the time. And then the DVDs came out in the early 2000s. And I'm pretty sure, maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that when the Beatles content was eventually available for digital download, the Anthology albums were put on. I don't know about the documentary. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't get near it because I had the DVDs at this point, so I didn't have to download them. So I don't know if there's been a remaster in between. I don't think there has, because if there was, we would have had a Blu-ray release by this point. We've never had it. So
yeah, sorry, my dog's invading.
Because I know that Bob Smeaton and Jeff Wan were the original directors of the episodes from the 90s. Jeff sadly passed away a few years ago, so I think it needs someone with Peter Jackson's technical capabilities to bring it up to a modernisation of. Yeah. It's filmed for TV as well, so it's obviously going to be an aspect ratio. I don't know what you'd call it, 4.3. I don't really know the ratio of television these days, John, but it was made for TV. But Peter Jackson's been there. He's done it. He'd done it with Get Back. That was filmed with TV cameras, and obviously clearing up the images like he did with Get Back, you'd have to do the same for the Beatles Anthology as well. Although it was only 30 years ago, it probably has deteriorated more than you would think.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Stephen, we've seen what he can do with They Shall Not Grow Old, was it? The World War I stuff. If he can clean that up and add in missing frames to make it a fluid motion, then I'm sure he could go back and do some absolute magic on this. Bring it up to a better standard overall. I mean, what they were doing 30 years ago was incredible. I'm not talking like this was like the fucking Victorian era. I mean, it was 30 years ago, but still, just the way they'd be like talking, then it'd go to like a shot of a room, and then it'd zoom into a poster on the wall, and you're into Kansas City, hey, 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 and it's a live performance. It was just really well put together. It was clever. Yeah. But it does need a new lick of paint. So again, there's a whole host of options they can pursue, and also, like you said earlier, they can release it in tandem with Real Love and Free as a Bird getting the maltreatment. So it makes sense So even though they've not announced the actual anthology getting a re-release, I think it's inevitable at this point that it will happen, and it would be silly not to do it later in the year, because that would be the 30th anniversary.
I get why the books came out first, because there's no real hard work involved in re-releasing a book. You're just reprinting what's already there. But as you said, the technical aspects of the documentary, the albums, and the singles is another thing. Especially if it's going to be the MAL system, it's going to clean this thing up. John, 9.1 out of 10 still on IMDb for the Beatles Anthology for a 30-year-old documentary. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it deserves it. I'd rate it higher than that. I'd have to look at music documentaries and see which ones are the highest rated. I'm going to try and find out, Rotten Tomatoes or something, which ones are the best rated. And if this is not right up the top, then there's something fucking seriously wrong. I don't even know. Gimme Shelter and things like that are in there. Soul Boys of the Western World, don't even know what that is. Spandau Ballet. I mean, that's in there. I mean, I don't believe these are better than the anthology. Yeah. The other F word, this is fucking like U2.
Occasionally you get an interesting documentary that comes on, and I think one of the ones that that sort of I kind of tuned into a little bit was on, was it Netflix or Prime? It was the Bon Jovi one. I'm not a big fan of Bon Jovi or anything like that, but sometimes you do take an interest in bands just to see where they came from and how they became what they became and stuff like that. But even that, I just think that this has got everything. It's got all bells and whistles. It's gone into their childhoods. It's gone into relationships as well, and even those later years as well. The sort of tough talking ones, the ones where it was too hard to talk about. Even in 1994, 95, when this was all getting filmed, they still managed to have some kind of coherent story, and version of what happened without. I would imagine the sort of legal stuff was still going on in the mid-90s, so they had to be very careful how they portrayed the story, and perhaps maybe the three surviving Beatles had to sit down and get their stories straight as well, just for legal reasons. But I think since then we've all seen Get Back. We've seen, I think, another version of what happened. I'm not saying that's the gospel truth either, because at the end of the day, it's still an edited film, but we're seeing that's selective from a director. There's still hours and hours upon footage that we didn't see, and we don't know what happened in those hours. So you've got to take the yin and yang. You've got Get Back, you've got Let It Be, both films, and you can balance it out and get some kind of interpretation. And that's what they did. I think there was a lot of compromise in terms of the Beatles Anthology, and I think Yoko would have had a big say in it as well in terms of how John was portrayed in the documentary as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's great hearing from George Martin as well.
Well, I mean, that takes on more importance now because we've sadly not got the guy anymore, so I'm glad to get in when he was still alert, lucid, and by all accounts he was going deaf near the end, so was able to...
George Martin is away, Derek Taylor's away, Neil Aspinall's away, Miles, obviously, he was long gone by this point. I think 1976 he was tragically killed in LA. So one by one, John, we're losing them, and we've only got Paul and Ringo left now, which is it's sad. But as you said, I'm glad they got them when they did in the mid-90s, because it was probably the last time, especially with George's illnesses, George Harrison, obviously coming up, within a few years. I'm just so glad they did this documentary, because it was a do it now or it's never getting done situation.
Absolutely, and what we got was truly special. I can't find another documentary, by the way, that's better. There's some ones that are right up there, but it's certainly not better. Stephen, in terms of remixes, are you surprised that we've not got a Rubber Soul 2025 remix confirmed yet? Because obviously we got Revolver. And it was brilliant. And Rubber Soul and Revolver have always felt like a double album to me.
He's always said in interviews, you watch him on Chris Evans or whatever, he's always said, people are very shocked when I say, this is not my job, when he talks about these remastering. And he says it takes an enormous amount of time out of his life to sit down and break these things down and then remix them into his interpretation of what he thinks his father would have done with the technology.
Yep.
Obviously, with the Peter Jackson Now and Then treatment, and obviously the release of that, it kind of changed things about, because then they prioritised the red and blue albums for their release in sort of deluxe form. I think they will go back eventually to it, but I think it's just going to be, might be a bit of a wait, because I think the Beatles Anthology is now the priority.
And that'd be fine by me. Listen, we've got time. That's one thing we've got, is time to do this. And you want it done right. Like you says, it's not like they're going in and doing like a couple of things with like a mixing table or something. It's really in depth. They're having to sonically pick out the instruments, the backing vocals, separate it all. And you see that with Giles when he's laying it out, and those brilliant little short clips I think we got round about Revolver, and probably the other albums as well. What he does, he shows you the isolated tracks and how you even, I mean, these were just all, I mean, obviously it was stereo, but it's still fucking, it's two sides. And I'd imagine there was a degree of being able to separate things in the original tapes and whatnot, but he has individualised everything. That takes time to do. So I'm willing to give the guy time, and certainly if he's working on the anthology and giving us a new lick of paint and new versions of those two songs, for me, Real Love is still the best post sort of Beatles song.
Yeah.
It's right up there, and I can't stress enough how much I'm looking forward to that coming out, because look, Now and Then was a good song, but if it got to number one, then I'm sorry, Real Love, when it comes out, is a fucking shoe-in for number one. Just as long as we don't get any shenanigans from the Michael Jackson estate trying to release like a 30th anniversary of the Earth song or something.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a sort of edit of Real Love for YouTube, along with Freeze a Bird, I think, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, from Giles Martin. So he's no stranger to it.
Yeah.
But I think the initial releases from 95 and 96 for both those singles, people did have a bugbear about John's voice on Real Love sounding too much chipmunky.
Yeah.
Because of the speeding up the tempo of the song to make it more poppy. But again, it was limited technology. Probably maybe not the right decision in hindsight for the song, but the YouTube version is fantastic.
It
really
is,
good.
Yeah, it definitely is. I love Real Love. I'm buzzing to hear it. I don't know if I've got anything else to say, Stephen, in regards to Les Beatles. Other than to say that the book I will buy if I don't get your version off you first.
Yeah,
unless they confirm that there's actual new information and whatnot and new stuff, and it's not Paul rewriting history, because I don't want to read that shit. No offence to you, Macca-son, but Macca-son, the guy's about fucking 60 years older than me, 50 years older. How old is Macca now? He's 83 this year.
He is 83, yeah.
Yeah, 83, yeah. He's 68 years older than me. 67 years older than me. That's nuts, isn't it? 67 years, fucking hell. I'm calling him son. Yeah, get out of yourself, Johnny boy. Macca would slap you about, mate, even now. And I'd take the slapping, believe me. It was like Keith Richards talking about getting a beating off of somebody. Would you rather... Was it Keith? It was Liam Gallagher. If you get your shit kicked out of you with Keith Richards, nobody would blink an eyelid either. But yeah, it's Keith Richards. Guys assaulted people with Telecasters in the middle of a song and a live performance, and then get back to playing, and then bailed them out after the show. That's fine, but getting the shit kicked out of you with a guy with disability glasses and a white suit is another thing entirely. Well, I mean, the same goes for Macca at the end of the day. Not a traditional hard man, but people forget they were Scousers. Yeah. And are Scousers in Macca and Ringo's case. Hard people. So you would get the shit kicked out of you. I digress. I'm gibbering fucking shite. Hopefully it comes. Hopefully we get an announcement. And hopefully it all is packaged together in a lovely little sort of box set of some kind, because I would dearly... I mean, I've got the original sort of DVD release from Lord knows when, but I'd like to see a nice little sort of...
But I've not got a DVD player.
I've got a DVD player, no, I can't even put it in the fucking Xbox now, because the Xbox, it's a digital only version. I'd have to buy an external DVD drive or Blu-ray drive. I'm just not willing to do that. It's 2025 now, and I mean, I'd still buy it. I'd still fucking buy it to keep it, because it's a collector's thing. Look, vinyls have come back. What's to say that DVDs won't come back, and people will forsake Blu-ray? People are strange fucking beasts. My dog's a strange beast. He's terrifying me and terrorising me in equal measures at the moment. He He's a big boy and he's doing cartwheels on the bed. I digress. What's your thoughts on the Beatles Anthology? The book initially, 25th anniversary, getting a re-release later this year. Do you think we will get a 30th anniversary re-release of the actual anthology documentary, New Like a Paint, upscaled, maybe Peter Jackson getting involved, maltreatment with the 2 other singles, bookending it all together, lovely, and giving us a release that's fitting for 2025 or 2026, whenever it may drop? Is that something you want to see? What's your thoughts on it? Anything you want to share, pop it down below in the comment section. My dogs can't do it because I've not got ears like that. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notifications straight to your eyes. I don't know why I'm talking like a posh Scotsman, but I am. Same thing over on Twitch, follow button, notifications button over there to see us live on that platform. And all that's left to be said is until the next time, thank you for watching us. Bye bye. I tried to, my hardest there, not to look at the camera before I press the thanks for watching you or look down at the stream deck. I just couldn't do it. I'm not professional enough, sorry. Bye bye.